This is EE370. We are now at lecture number 21. So our aim now is to be able to build a combinational circuit where you have some output, let's say out equal to some sort of a Boolean combination of inputs I1, I2, etc. up to IN. And we said that we are going to build this in a complementary static CMOS logic based fashion, wherein you will have a pull up network that connects your output to VDD, a pull down network that connects your output to ground, and all of these inputs are fed to both the pull up and the pull down networks. So, based on what function is being implemented, whenever you feed in these n inputs to both pull up and pull down networks, at any given time under steady state conditions, we expect to see either the pull up network to be active, that means there is a path from VDD to the output, or you expect to see this path to be completely disabled and the pull down path is on, that is, there is a path from out to ground. Right? And depending on how we implement these, your out node under steady state conditions is either always connected to VDD or it is always connected to ground. Right? That is how we are going to get this out value to be either a logic 0 or a logic 1. Then we saw that we have two types of switches using which we can build our PUN and PDN. What are the two types of switches? You can either use an NMOS transistor or you can use a PMOS transistor, right? And we also analyzed what would be better suited to build a pull-up network. Which one would you use for a pull-up network? NMOS transistor? You would use a PMOS transistor. Why? Because a PMOS transistor will be able to pull this node all the way to VDD. A PMOS transistor, we say, is good at passing 1, that is logic 1, or in other words, good at passing VDD. Similarly, an NMOS transistor will be able to pull down this voltage all the way to the ground, or in other words, we say an NMOS transistor is good at passing 0. Okay. Now, the simplest combinational circuit that you can implement is, of course, out equal to some function of a single input. And again, the simplest one that you can implement is out equal to naught of I1. This is an inverter function. And how does a CMOS inverter look like? We quickly saw that in a CMOS inverter, the pull-up network is simply going to be a single PMOS transistor. Pull-down network is a single NMOS transistor. And this is where you feed your input. This is where you take your output. Okay? Now, as you can imagine, any other combinational circuit will involve a larger pull-up network and a larger pull-down network here. Right? So, if we focus on understanding all the properties of the CMOS inverter, as we proceed with larger combinational circuits such as a NAND gate or a NOR gate, we will be able to extrapolate from whatever we learned on the CMOS inverter and then quickly calculate everything else for the new logic gate. So because of this, we are going to spend a lot of time on the CMOS inverter. We are going to look at its static characteristics, its voltage transfer characteristics, what is its static power. Then we will look at how to compute delay for a CMOS inverter, different cases under which we need to compute delay. We will look at dynamic power consumption and basically all properties associated with the CMOS inverter, with the understanding that all of this knowledge can easily be applied to the a more complex logic gate. Okay. So we started out by looking at what we call as the voltage transfer characteristic. This is also sometimes called as the DC characteristics. of a CMOS inverter. Right? What does this mean? So you take your CMOS inverter, you feed some DC voltage here, and you probe this output voltage using the multimeter. But something very specific to the VTC characteristic, so this is also called as VTC, is that these are static measurements, meaning you change the voltage, then you wait for sufficiently long time such that the circuit reaches steady state, and then only you measure the output. So you will have, this is the input to the inverter, that is on the x-axis. This is the output of the inverter that comes on the y-axis. So you will, let's say you start with VDC equal to 0. So you start from here, then you wait for sufficiently long time till all the voltages are settled, and then you will measure what is the voltage corresponding to that. Then you will increment this VDC by a small amount. You wait for everything to settle, then you will note down what that voltage is. So you repeat this process for the full range of Vin, and you get a plot here that corresponds to the VTC for the CMOS inverter. Okay. Now, before we get into the actual VTC of the CMOS inverter, I'm going to show you certain VTCs, and you can tell me if that VTC looks okay to you. Right? So let's say I have taken a random inverter. Let's say the VTC for that looks like this. So input is on the x-axis. We have output on the y-axis, and let's say the characteristic looks like this. Say this is 1 volt, this is 2 volt. Okay. Do you see any problem in using a circuit? So using an inverter with the characteristic as shown here. On a quick look, if my input is very small, your output is high. Input is large, your output is low. Right? It looks like it could be an inverter. Are you able to see any issues with it? What is the issue? You will not be able to cascade it, right? Let me explain what we mean by that. So let's say I take 2 of these inverters. Let's say I feed logic 0. That is, I am feeding 0 volt at the input of this inverter. What is the output? If I feed in 0 volt, what is the output based on this diagram? That is going to be 1 volt. Right? So here you have 1 volt. Now the second inverter, this inverter sees 1 volt input. Right? Is that logic 1 or logic 0 for the second inverter? It's bang in the middle of, what we would have called as 0 or logic 0 or logic 1. Right? So then you could have a problem. Right? And this discussion is not complete unless I tell you how we should be defining logic 0 and logic 1. Right? So let us do that. So if I take an inverter and let's say I feed in what this inverter clearly recognizes as logic 0, then you expect to see an output which is logic 1. Right? So the typical output voltage corresponding to a logic 0 input to the inverter, we will call this as VOH. V output high. Similarly, if I feed a logic 1 to this inverter, I'm going to call the typical output voltage corresponding to that as VIH or V input high. Okay. So now if I take the possible range of voltages at the output, there is some voltage that is going to act as a V output high, and there is some typical voltage that we will call as the V output low. Okay. Now let's say I cascade this with another inverter. Right? Now I'm going to define 2 more parameters called as VIH and VOH. VIL. Right? VIH, as you can imagine, corresponds to the high voltage or the logic 1. This is the minimum voltage at the input that will be treated as logic 1. Right? So now this inverter has some VIH, right? You want your VOH to be treated as a logic 1 by this inverter. So can you tell me, should your VIH be greater than VOH or smaller than VOH? Smaller. It has to be smaller, right? So I'll mark the VIH here. Similarly, your VIL is the maximum voltage at the input that will be treated as a logic 0. Right? So now if the first inverter gives you some VOL and the second inverter has a VIL specification associated with it, should your VIL be greater than VOL or smaller than VOL? So I got the answer that it should be smaller. Right? If your VIL is smaller, so this gives out a VOL, right? Because your VIL is smaller, this will not be considered as a logic 1. Right? So your VIL has to be greater than VOL. So I should mark it on this side. Okay. Now the beauty of this implementation, this sort of a choice of VIH and VOH is that, let's say you got some output at VOH, right? How much noise can you accommodate on this line and still have that net be identified, that signal be identified as a logic 1 by this inverter? Right? So you have some VOH. You know that the voltage has to be above. So this is what I'm calling as my VOH. And you have some VIH, right? As long as your VOH is greater than VIH, you are safe. It will be identified as a logic 1 by the second inverter. Now, how much noise you think I can accommodate here? Yes. So if that noise goes beyond this level, then here at this point, you are in this region where the inverter cannot recognize it as either logic 0 or logic 1, right? Which means you could accommodate a noise up to this much and still your second inverter will correctly detect it as logic 1, right? So this quantity VOH minus VIH is telling you the margin by which you can add noise, or the margin by which you are still insensitive to noise in the circuit. What should we call that parameter? Noise margin, right? So your noise margin high is simply equal to VOH minus VIH. Similarly, you can have a noise margin defined for this region. Your noise margin low, what is this value equal to? VOL minus VIL? It has to be VIL minus VOL. Right? And ideally, you would like to maximize both these quantities, both NMH and NML maximized is better for you. Because that means your digital circuits are less sensitive to noises in the circuit. Okay, now a quick note, this region between VIH and VIL, this is our undefined region. It's also called as the indeterminate region. And under steady state, we wouldn't want any of our voltages to be in this indeterminate region, right? You would want to work above VIH or below VIL. All right, so now with this information in hand, I'm going to give you 4 more VTCs, and then you can tell me if there is a VTC that you would prefer among all the 4. So in all of these cases, we are looking at V0 versus Vin, output of the CMOS inverter versus input of the CMOS inverter. Let's say I take our previous VTC. This time I make sure they are connected to both the ranges at the input and the output are between VDD. The second choice I'm giving you is going to look like this. This is also, let's say, between VDD and VDD. The third choice is like this. And the fourth choice looks like this. So, any preferences that you have among the four? So, this is C and this is D. Any takers for A and B? Right, something looks really fishy about B, so I'm sure nobody wants to opt for it. But I can see that there are no takers for A also. Right, so it looks like our analysis now boils down to analyzing between the VTC C and D. Right, how should we go about analyzing these two? Okay, so let me give you a setup using which you can analyze both of them. So let's say we have a characteristic that looks like this. I'm roughly going to mark the VIL and VIH on this plot. Okay, let's say your VIL is somewhere here, meaning any voltages below this is considered as a logic 0, and I'm going to mark your VIH as somewhere here. Right, now consider a chain of CMOS inverters like this. Let's say the first voltage is some V1 shown here. So I apply a V1 which is clearly a logic 0 to the input of your first inverter. Right? Can you proceed through this chain? So corresponding to this, you will get some output that you can call as V2. Now the V2 is getting applied here, etc. Now V2 becomes the input. So can you proceed through this chain and see what you are able to get? Please work this out. Roughly, right? Of course, I have not given you exact values. So based on whatever you are able to follow, try how the outputs are going to be. Right? So you have V2 here. Right? V2 is smaller than VDD. Right? For sake of sanity, in the first step, I am going to assume that this V2 is still greater than my VIH. Smaller than VDD, but greater than my VIH. Right? So the second inverter sees V2 as the input. Let's look at the output voltage corresponding to that. Right? This is your V3. Where do you think the V3 is going to lie? Right? It is much smaller than VDD, but it is also not very close to 0. So very high chances that your V3 is going to lie in between these two regions. Right? So you started with a reasonably well-defined logic 0 at the input of an inverter chain, and by the time you got to the output, you have wandered off into this undefined region. Right? So now let us do the same analysis for the fourth VTC. So why don't you also try this from your end and tell me what you are able to see? So this need not necessarily be at ground. It could have been a value slightly higher also. I'm going to call this as my VIL, and I'll call some voltage here as my VIH. We take the inverter chain again. Let's apply V1 to the input. And let's say this V1 is logic 0, slightly smaller than VIL. Right? Corresponding to this, the output of the first inverter looks like I've already marked it to VDD, but let's say it's slightly smaller than VDD. I'm going to call this as V2. So this V2, which is the output of the first inverter, goes as input to the second inverter, right? For the second inverter, is V2 going to be logic 0 or logic 1? V2 is slightly smaller than VDD, which means I would expect to see this value somewhere here on the x-axis. Now, corresponding to that, the output is this. So this is my V3, and V3 is the output of the second inverter. Right? Now for the third inverter, V3 logic 0 or logic 1? It is logic 0. In fact, it is very close to 0. Right? So if I were to mark it on the x-axis, it will come here. So this is now a better logic 0 than V1 was. Right? And if you continue doing this, you will see that this is now a better logic 1. It's more closer to VDD. Right? So you started the first voltage of the inverter chain with some value that is a reasonably okay-ish logic 0, meaning that it was slightly below VIL. But as the signal went through the cascade of inverters, it became a better logic 0 and a better logic 1. It resolved better into the typical high and typical low voltages. Right? So therefore, between these two VTC characteristics, we should opt for D. Right? Now that is a very straightforward statement to say based on the results we have seen. But we are engineers, so let's get more specific. What about the D characteristics do we like? Right? What is the difference that you notice between the two? It makes it better, but what characteristics in these curve is helping us do that? Better noise margin, that is correct. But again, how do I explain it in terms of these two curves? Yes, the slope of the indeterminate region is more steep, right? So this is V out versus V in, and you are looking at dV out versus dV, the slope of the curve, which is derivative of y by x, right? And you see that in this undefined region, the slope is much more steeper here, right? Whereas here the slope is almost 0. So that is part 1. Part 2, during the regions where you had a well-defined logic 0 and logic 1, your output curves are also very stable, right? Whereas here it was transitioning a lot. So the VTC characteristic that we like now is that during the indeterminate or the undefined region, we want a very large slope. And during the regions where you have a logic 0 and a logic 1, corresponding to that, the slope should be almost equal to 0. Right? So now, based on this, we are going to define our VIH and VIL. Right? Let's start with the definition of VIL. We understand that VIL has to come somewhere here, right? Our value of VIL should be somewhere here such that this region has a 0 slope. How do we decide at which point our VIL should be? So if you look at the slope of this, the slope is almost 0 here. It is slowly in negative direction, increasing, and eventually after some point, it begins to rapidly increase, right? In negative direction, or if I'm looking at the magnitude, the slope is increasing rapidly. So somewhere here, where that slope is beginning to increase very rapidly, that is where we would like to place our VIL. Before that, what would that value be? Slope equal to -1. Right? That is a reasonable point to start with. So in effect, at these points, your slope is much smaller than 1. Eventually, it hits -1 somewhere here. And after that, the magnitude of the slope is going to increase to a large value. So you find out the point where slope of this curve is equal to -1. Corresponding to that, I will mark my V input low. Similarly, on this side of the curve, you'll find a point where again the slope becomes -1. Corresponding to that, I will mark my VIH. Right? Now, if I wanted to have a very high noise margin, what comment can you make about VIL and VIH values? Should they move in this direction or should they move in this direction? Yes, they should be close to each other. That means you need to have a sharper, very sharp transition in the undefined region. So based on this, how do you think your ideal VTC should look like? Right? So we now understand that we want our VIH and VIL to be as close as possible. So in the extreme case, how would you like your ideal VTC to look like? It could look like this. Okay? Where this point, so if this is VDD and this is VDD, you will have both your VIH and VIL here, and this should be equal to VDD by 2. Right? And this becomes your VOH, and this value is your VOL. Right? This is what our ideal VTC should look like. Now we have implemented a CMOS inverter using transistors. Let us see how close we can get to this ideal characteristic that we want. So by the way, this property that we just went through, wherein even when you fed a reasonably okay-ish logic value, voltage here, and it resolved into better and better logic 0 and logic 1, this is called as the regenerative property. Okay. So now let us now look at the VTC for the CMOS inverter. So before we do the full-blown analysis to obtain the VTC, let us quickly get an intuitive feel for what is going to happen as you change your Vin from 0 to VDD. Right? For the NMOS transistor, so let's say this is your Vin, this is V0. For the NMOS transistor, what is VGS? So gate voltage is connected to Vin, source voltage is connected to ground. So VGS is same as Vn. So VGS minus VTN is simply going to be Vin minus VTN. Your VDS for the NMOS transistor is, this is same as V0, and then you will of course have some VD Saturn associated with this transistor, right? Now when your V input is equal to 0, what region is your NMOS transistor in? This is in cutoff because your Vin is 0, therefore VGS is smaller than VTN, it is in cutoff region. What about your PMOS transistor? So let me quickly write out the conditions. What is the VSG for the PMOS transistor? The source voltage is at VDD, gate voltage is at Vin, so VSG is VDD minus Vin. Right? So VSG minus mod VTP is the voltage that you need to look at. What about your VSD? Source is at VDD, drain is at V0, so VSD becomes VDD minus V0. Okay? So VDD minus V0, and finally you will have some VD Sat. Now, when your input is 0, What is the output voltage for the inverter? If this is at 0, it's a CMOS inverter. You know that the output voltage is going to be VDD. And this is true. Now imagine you are increasing the V input. Till what point is this statement true? Till the point at which your NMOS transistor turns on. Right? Because as long as your NMOS transistor is off, right? So there is no path for the current from here to here. The NMOS transistor is off. There is only a path for current from here to here. Right? Which means this node will get pulled to pulled to VDD. Your pull-up network is in full action. It will pull up this V0 to VDD. Right? This is true till your NMOS transistor turns on. So till this voltage reaches VTN, your output will remain at VDD. And under these conditions, your NMOS is in cutoff and your PMOS is in linear region. Now, beyond this, your NMOS transistor is turning on, right? In what region is it going to turn on? Right? Because your NMOS transistor is turning on and your V0 is still very high, right? So VDS is going to be high, which means VDS is going to be greater than Vn minus VTN. Your Vn values are still very small, right? So your NMOS transistor is going to turn on in saturation. Corresponding to that, what will happen to V0? V0 will begin to decrease, right? So your V0 is now going to decrease. And in this region, your NMOS is in saturation. PMOS is in linear region. Now, as you increase your Vin, your Vout is going to reduce. What is the next region change that you can expect? PMOS is going to enter in saturation, right? Why is PMOS entering in saturation? Because your V0 is reducing, which means VDD minus V0 is now going to increase. That is, your VSD is going to increase, right? So at some point, as your V0 reduces, your PMOS is also going to enter into saturation region. So you'll have a region here where both NMOS is in saturation and your PMOS remains in saturation. So now the slope of these portions will depend on whether channel length modulation is involved or not. If channel length modulation is 0, then this is going to be very sharp, infinite in the region where both of them are in saturation. Now, what do you expect to see after this? You keep increasing your Vin, your V0 keeps reducing, and at some point, the NMOS is going to enter into linear region. Right? So the next region will correspond to NMOS being in linear region and your PMOS still in saturation. What is the next region change that you expect to see? PMOS will eventually enter into cutoff as your input is increasing. At what value will it enter into cutoff? When it hits VDD minus mod VTP, then your PMOS enters into cutoff, and beyond that, the output value is simply 0. Right? So this corresponds to 0 value, and that is true from VDD minus mod VTP till your input reaches VDD. So in this region, you have NMOS in linear region and PMOS in cutoff. Again, under steady state operation in a circuit, we either want to be in this region or in this region where the transistors are either in cutoff or in linear region. We don't want to venture into the in-between region where the transistors could potentially be in saturation. Right? Is this clear? Any questions on this? Yes?
Can the current flow out from the output branch?
That is a very nice question, right? The question is, can the current flow like this? That depends on what is being connected here. Now, if I were to connect a physical resistor, right, then you will of course have current flowing into this provided V0 is greater than 0. But typically on an IC, how would the load look like?
High impedance.
It is high impedance, or in other words, if you were to connect this to, let's say, another inverter, let's say I connected this to another inverter, what would that load look like? In terms of its electrical properties, what should I consider here?
It should be high impedance because we have the gates on the other side.
Right, but more than input resistance, what have you studied about a CMOS inverter?
Gates on the input side.
It is gate on the input side, right? Now, how do we model the effect of charge going into the gate? A capacitor, right? So current is zero under steady state, right? But the fact that a charge needs to go in to turn on that switch, or a charge needs to be removed to turn it off, implies that there is a capacitive action. So if I wanted to model the inverter in terms of electrical parameters, I would model this as a capacitor, right? Now, under steady state conditions, the capacitor will not have any current, right? Therefore, for this analysis, the capacitor will not make a difference. Is that clear? All right. So if this is clear, now because VTC is such an important topic, we are going to derive this whole thing again using a graphical method. This is also called as a load line plot. The idea is very straightforward. So you have some output voltage V0 here. There is some current I0 flowing through the PMOS transistor. Under steady state conditions, what comment can you make about the current flowing through the NMOS transistor? That should also be the same, right? So this will also be equal to I0. So now I can do I0 versus V0 for the NMOS transistor. This I will do based on the IV characteristic of the NMOS transistor. On the same plot, based on the IV relationship of the PMOS transistor, I'll plot the I0 versus V0 looking only at the PMOS transistor. I will see where these two plots are going to converge, right? Where do they have crossings? And based on that, I'm going to derive the VTC for this transistor. Is the overall idea clear? Right? So now to start, let us plot I0 versus V0 for the NMOS transistor. Right? So I want to do I0 versus V0 for the NMOS transistor from the figure. Can you tell me what is I0? That is same as the drain to source current. Right? So this is your IDS. What about V0? What does V0 correspond to for the NMOS transistor? We have seen this. This is VDS, right? So I'm basically looking at the ID versus VDS plot for the NMOS transistor, right? And I will do this for 4 values of input. So let's say Vin equal to 0, Vin1, Vin2, Vin3, and finally VDD, where the relationship is of course like this. Right? How does it look like? Because this is something that we are all very familiar with. I'll go through this quickly. For Vin equal to 0, how does the ID curve look like? Vin is 0. What is ID? The transistor is in cutoff, therefore your ID is also 0. Vn equal to Vn1, I'm going to assume that this is greater than the VTN. So you'll have some plot like this. For the next one, you'll have a plot like this. And finally, the green one will be above all of this. All right. How does it look for the PMOS transistor? Now, for the PMOS transistor, what is I naught and what is V naught? Can you tell me what is I naught for the PMOS transistor? That is ISD, current from source to drain. What about V naught? What is V naught? Is it VSD? Is it VSD plus VDD? So this is your VDD. This voltage is your VSD. And here you have V naught. So V naught is equal to VDD minus VSD. Right? So you have V naught equal to VDD minus VSD and I naught is equal to ISD. Right? So let me first plot I naught versus VSD. Then we will do the plot of I naught versus V naught. So if I look at I naught versus V naught, and I'm looking at this for Vin equal to 0, Vin 1, Vin 2, Vin 3, so the colors got messed up. So Vin 1, Vin 2, Vin 3 and finally VDD. Right? So for Vin equal to 0, what is I naught for a PMOS transistor? Is it 0? When your Vin is equal to 0, right? When your Vn is equal to 0, what is VSG? VSG is maximum, right? And VSG is clearly greater than mod VTP. So when Vn is equal to 0, you expect to see the maximum current. And when Vn is equal to VDD, you expect to see 0 current, right? So the relationship is different for NMOS and PMOS. So when Vn is equal to VDD, your current is 0, and as you decrease the Vn, your current is going to keep increasing. So you are looking at a relationship of I naught versus VSD as shown here. Right? So this is I naught versus VSD, not V naught. Now we want to plot I naught versus V naught. How do I transform this? Right? Where V naught is VDD minus VSD. So when your VSD is equal to 0, right? When your VSD equal to 0, that corresponds to points here. They will appear in this plot on which side? Towards here, right? Because when your VSD is 0, your V naught is equal to VDD. Similarly, all of these portions will correspond to V naught equal to 0, right? When your VSD is equal to VDD, VDD minus VDD corresponds to V naught equal to 0. So in effect, I need to rotate it, right? And your curves are going to now look like the following. So you will have this, let's say this is your VDD. Assume that I have nicely rotated it, but you get the overall idea, right? All of the points on this side now appear here, and everything happening here is now appearing here. Right? So now I have got I naught versus V naught for both the devices, where these devices have been connected in series to make I naught equal. Now if I plot both of them together and mark the points that allow for I naught to be equal, right? That is for a given Vn, wherever the curves are going to coincide. That will be the solution for that given Vn. Right? So can you do this? Plot both I naught versus V naught in the same plot and see if you are able to identify the value of V naught corresponding to a given V. Please give it a try. Let me help you. I'll start with the value of Vin equal to 0. For the PMOS transistor, that corresponded to the highest current. Right? For Vin equal to 0, your current was the highest. So let me sketch that here. Can you see where the intersection is? Where is the intersection? This is where you are intersecting. Right? So now similarly, let me plot for all the other lines. Okay. And now let me highlight all the intersections. For Vn equal to 0, we have already highlighted. For Vn1, this is where both the Vn1 curves are intersecting. For Vn2, the intersection is happening here. Vn3, the intersection is happening here. And finally, for VDD, this is where your intersection is happening. Okay. Now, I want to get a V0 versus Vin plot from this. How do I do that? So, I look at V0 versus Vn. So, I have right now points corresponding to 0, some Vn1, Vn2, Vn3, and finally VDD. Looking at this, can you tell me where I should put for Vn1? Your value is here, right? Is this closer to VDD or closer to ground? On the x-axis, you have VDD. And if I were to find out what this value is, this is more closer to VDD than it is to ground, right? So corresponding to Vn equal to 0, this was your cross-section point, that is VDD. Corresponding to Vn1, you get a point which is very close to VDD. For Vn2, this is roughly in the middle of the range. So I'll mark it somewhere here. For Vn3, you are very close to 0. So I'll mark it here. And finally, this value is here. Now, if you had drawn this with sufficient resolutions for Vn, I'll take 2 more minutes. If you had drawn this with sufficient resolutions for Vn, you would have been able to fill in the points in between. Right? And then you would have gotten a curve that looks like this. Okay? Now, depending on whether you have a short channel transistor or long channel transistor, and depending on the RDS value, the transition region can get even more sharp. So I didn't draw this very exactly, but even for a short channel transistor, you would see that your curve is likely to look like this. Okay, and as you go into long channel transistors, this transition region is going to get sharper and sharper. Any questions on this? If not, I have one comment to make about our definitions of VIH and VIL. So now, the definition that we have used here for VIH and VIL being taken from slope equal to -1, that is a very simplistic definition, right? But it is sufficient for us to analyze most of the combinational circuits, most of the logic gates that we will implement, right? But if you were to search in the textbooks, you are likely to come across at least 2 other definitions that are popularly used. So the definition I am following, this has been picked up from Digital Integrated Circuits by Jan Rabe. But if anyone is interested to know more about the other definitions, and if there is a reason to use a more nuanced definition for VIH and VIL, then you can look at this paper, Noise Margin Criteria for Digital Logic Circuits. For the purposes of this course, we will assume VOH and VOL are the typical high and typical low voltages of your logic gate, and VIH and VIL correspond to inputs for which you get slope equal to -1 in the VTC. Okay, thank you.